Okay, hello NuPIC. This is Matt Taylor, the open source community flag bearer for NuPIC, and we have in the Numenta offices the rest of the Numenta NuPIC team. This is not a sprint planning meeting, so we voted on our, well, we didn't really vote. We had a discussion on the NuPIC hackers mailing list to switch to a bit of a format. So we're not going to be planning 2 weeks of work and trying to execute it and then planning another 2 weeks of work. We're moving away from sprints and moving towards something a bit more flexible, I believe, and requires less planning, and I think works better for an open source project. So what you are looking at here, I'm gonna zoom out here, so you can see the whole board real quick. I know you can't read it, but this is our Waffle board, which is Waffle is the product we're using here to view all of our issues across all of our repos in a way that we can kind of see them prioritized and then move them from left to right. So hopefully you can at least see that there's different columns here. On the left are very low priority issues, then a normal priority column, a high priority, and then a critical priority column, which thankfully is empty right now. And then we have an in progress column and a ready column and a done column. So just a quick explanation of these. All of the priority columns are powered by labels in GitHub issues. So there's labels P1 through P4. So all P1s are considered critical, and so on down the line. So P4s are the lowest priority. The in progress, whenever a
Matt, what if they
NuPIC
don't have a
contributor,
priority label? Does it show up at all or no?
Could you ask that again, please?
I'm sorry. If they don't have any priority label, does it show up anywhere?
No. So that's a good point. So I sort of assume, well, one assumption I'm making here is that we have a backlog of issues that are prioritized. Those issues are not showing up on this board. So if they have been prioritized, typically by me or anyone who has the permissions to, they can add the label P1 through P4, and it will show up on these columns. So it gives us sort of an unprioritized backlog of issues, and the ones that have been labeled at least are ready for work and could be grabbed by anyone. It's not going to prevent people from working on tickets in the backlog that haven't been prioritized, of course, but at least gives me a staging area. And I haven't gone through all of the tickets in the backlog and made sure that the important ones have been labeled. I've been working through it slowly. There's still a few hundred issues that are not showing up on the screen, a couple hundred, I think. So yeah, good point. The in progress column, if you are a contributor and you create a pull request, it automatically, this Waffle product automatically labels it as in progress and will show up in this in progress column. So if you're working on a ticket and you create a PR, it will just pop into in progress. If you're done with the PR, you can, and you're ready for it to be reviewed, you can simply, let me zoom in now so you can see this a little bit better, and then scroll. You can just say this PR is not done, it's breaking the build, but I could just pull it over to ready and drop it in, and it will remove the in progress label and add a ready label. So you can see all of the PRs here. These 4 PRs are ready for review. So that's basically awaiting someone to review that PR. And then once a PR is merged, it automatically gets moved over into the done column. So that's a few of the features of this Waffle product that we're taking advantage of. Also, if you manually remove in progress label and put the ready label on, that's reflected here as well. So we're going to be looking at this board until it's not useful anymore. I found it to be pretty useful, and I'm open to critiques over email or however you want to tell me on Gitter on whether these columns are useful or whether if you have a better idea about how this could be arranged. I'm still sort of just experimenting with this, so that's where we're at here. I would like to start, I think, since we're not necessarily planning the next sprint, we're reviewing the progress that we've made. So I would like to start by looking at pull requests that have been closed over the past 2 weeks. This view is kind of nasty because there's one very long title down here that's pushing everything to the right, so I could fix that with some styling that I didn't do before. But let's take a look at just some NuPIC issues. Yeah, so all of the PRs that have been closed on NuPIC, and this is probably for the past, I don't know, month, 2 months, I think. So we don't want to look at all of these, but at least, here's 14 days ago. And I'm not going to go over every single one of them because some of these pull requests were just closed manually. They were experiments. They never got merged into master. That's one thing I don't have is something to identify whether it was merged or closed, which would be really useful. But just because we all sort of have some idea of what we've been doing over the past couple weeks, I do want to run over some of the major subjects that have been going on. So one of the things that we have been working on is switching to C++ in NuPIC, and that's adjusting our build system, primarily adjusting our build system to use the proper compile flags, I believe, so that we can use so that we can be C++ 11 compliant. That's not just C++, C++ 11. And so I'm wondering, Austin, since you're there, if you could give a quick summary of how that's going.
Yeah, absolutely. So NuPIC core in master is now C++ 11, thanks to Mark's pull request. And there's still a couple of problems with NuPIC. So NuPIC itself on master doesn't point to the updated NuPIC core because there's still some correlations between the two. Currently trying to work out. One of which has to do with compiling the split bindings. The other one has to do with CPP region. I've been able to have some success with building the CPP region by making sure that YAML CPP is included, similar to some of the stuff that we're doing for NuPIC core. Currently trying to diagnose problems with SWIP. And it looks like the solution might be in NuPIC to use the standard C++, which conflicts with the NuPIC core usage of C++. But if it works, it works. So I'm currently investigating that. So yeah, current state is NuPIC core C++ 11. NuPIC's in progress. Current state of NuPIC is not broken per se. It's just behind the core in that respect.
So that means we can't do any changes in NuPIC that require new things in NuPIC core until we do results.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we're NuPIC core is a bit ahead. But it sounded like, Austin, you had an idea of more things to try, so I wouldn't say that we're totally blocked on this at this point. We just need more time, right? Okay, so that's the C++ 11 issue. We're also still...
That's really good progress.
Oh, great, thank you. I didn't do any of it, so...
Okay, you can take
another thing we've been working on for a while and we're still trying to get put in place is this integrating Google Test into our NuPIC core. So we went back and forth about what test framework we're going to use, what reporting style we're going to use, and I think we finally came back to Google Test. And initially, I didn't want to do it because it seemed like we were going to have to put the Google Test binaries in somewhere, either download it or put it somewhere that's accessible. And then I think we've worked around that, but there's still a problem with this PR that it doesn't work on Mac. So the build is working and running. I think that's the one that was working everywhere except on Mac OS X. Yeah, right. So we're trying to figure this out. I don't know if any of the C++ 11 work would help with this once we get that figured out, but it may. Who knows? So we're kind of stuck on that with Mac. I've tried to look into it. You can see the error messages that we're getting on this PR. Austin has replicated it. I've got the same issue, and I believe it's some type of linking problem. So I don't know what to do about it. So we're a little bit stuck on this one. But once we're unstuck, we should be able to get Google Test running all of our tests and get that report and do something with that report. I would like for Chetan to talk about the research tickets that have been closed over the past couple weeks. Oh wait, that's the wrong tab. Here we go. Research and closed. Okay, this might be hard to see, but maybe you can just give us an overview, Chetan. You guys seem to have done a lot of work. At least there's a lot of merged PRs in NuPIC research.
Yeah, Subhata and I have been working on creating experimentation test bed. So we have the ability now to create different experiments for sensory motor, especially for sensory motor temporal memory. And you can create like different spatial configurations and saccade over them and generate the results, both in terms of statistics of how many cells became predicted correct, how many cells were predicted correctly, how many cells per column were used to represent a given spatial configuration, these kinds of useful statistics, and also at each step along the way, sends out the details on which cells became active, which cells are predicted. So it's easy to debug and understand what's going on in each of these experiments. So this is kind of preparing a framework for doing further experimentation and research. So a lot of those closed PRs you see in NuPIC research are towards creating that, and they're all the entry point for all that is the integration tests. They all use that framework. Or there's one integration test class, and there's a bunch of tests in it. They use that framework. So if you were to run that, you'll be able to see that. With an increase the verbosity in that class, you would be able to see all this output. We've also created some tests. Some of these tests and metrics to validate some of the behavior of the sensory motor temperament that is required for. That's about it.
Okay, thank you for that update. Another big initiative we've taken on in the past couple weeks is trying to improve our builds. So we lost OS X builds a few months back, and we have since put them back into place. But the reason we lost them is because they were taking so long, they were timing out. And OS X builds are still kind of a beta feature of Travis CI anyway, so we can't expect them to be perfect, but it sometimes takes 20, 30, even more minutes before the OS X build even starts, and then it runs considerably slower than the Linux builds. So our Linux builds were getting up into the 45-minute range anyway, so we needed to do something before we hit that 50-minute time limit. As soon as a build goes over 50 minutes, it errors, so we needed to decrease the time of our builds, which we've done by pulling out the swarming tests from the main build in NuPIC and moving them into NuPIC regression. So that gave us maybe 10 minutes of leeway there so that we could add back the OS X builds. There's still some other things we're doing to try and speed things up as well. I've also moved out the sample applications into the regression build. And just so you know what I'm talking about here, if you're watching, this is our CI interface. So we've got NuPIC builds here, and let's grab a build that has recently passed. Each one of these was running all of our unit tests, and it still does that. So it continues to run unit tests, which you can see here, and then give a test report way down here. We have a lot of unit tests, which is great. And we are still running the integration test suite. So that was our unit tests, and this is our integration tests. But I've cut the time of integration tests down by a lot by removing all of these swarming tests into another location. So unit tests currently this one took over 1,000 seconds. I don't know what that is in minutes off the top of my head. But it was taking a lot longer. So back up into our regression build. So this is another repo called NuPIC regression. This used to be running no unit tests, no tests of any kind except for a very, very simple regression test. It is now running swarming tests, as you can see here. So all the swarming tests have been offloaded into this build, which means our builds run a lot faster, but we will have more regression test failures. So we're going to see how this works. Hopefully it works out. We don't have too many failures coming from this build, but that also means that when this build fails, if there's a swarming problem, that means we have a swarming problem on master. So I will be responding very quickly to any regression test failures. And here is, we've also moved over our running the examples into this as well. And Subutai suggested this morning that I should at least take one anomaly detection example and put it back into the main build just for sanity checking. And so I will be doing that. It shouldn't take very long. So that's the other big thing. I spent most of my technical time working on that this week. But that's good. So our builds are pretty healthy at this point. Let's see. So this build, the cumulative time is about 3 hours. But if you look at the times of each build, 30 minutes to 35 minutes, that's a good 10 minutes to 15 minutes less than what it has been. At least 10 minutes. So that's cutting 10 minutes off the build is great. But the cumulative time we can't really help. Travis will create a build and it might just sit there idle for 2 hours before it gets around to actually building, because there's a build queue and we're only allotted so many slots in the build queue. Okay, so that's what we've done over the past 2 weeks. Unless anyone has anything else that I missed that they think is important to note right now. Do you guys have anything else? All right. So let's talk quickly about the InProgress work. I am still working on some build stuff to try and speed things up, like putting Linux 64 back into the build, which would save us a few minutes, hopefully. There's a big community move still to get NuPIC running in Windows. So there's a PR that's running in App Conveyor, which is a CI for Windows, and Utensil and Richard Crowder are working on those issues, and there's quite a few people interested in that and wanting to work with NuPIC on Windows. So they're making progress, but they have a lot of to-do items to finish up. For the most part, it seems that what the work they're doing is not affecting the Linux and OS X builds at this point. And obviously it has to stay that way. So eventually, once their work is finished, we will have an App Conveyor build that kind of runs off to the side of our regular pipeline. Maybe we can figure out a way to incorporate it more tightly so that we can get notified or even use it as a validation before PRs are merged, but I have not looked into that yet. Let's see. Other than that, I'm still working on cleaning up the wiki. The wiki's getting messy, so I wrote some tool to find all the orphan pages, which there are quite a few. And there's still a few open PRs that have been around for a while but are in just a bad build state, like this anomaly strict. I'm waiting for Mark to work on that. This one Utensil is working on. So those are the in-progress tasks. These are open PRs, basically. And other high-priority pull requests high-priority issues to work on is we're just talking more about serialization again. So I think Scott has talked about trying to implement Cat and Proto again once now that we have C++11 on NuPIC core. I think you could start on that now as is. Is that correct, Scott?
Right.
Great. So that would be awesome to nail that down and get a new serialization scheme into effect. So there's other build things we want to improve. Like it would be awesome to keep CMake and all the CMake stuff in NuPIC core where all the C is, and have NuPIC just be a setup tools build. You could still call into NuPIC core to do the CMake stuff, but if we could get all the CMake out of NuPIC, I think that would be a good thing, because then it would feel a lot more like a Python project.
And given that I'm calling the CMake from NuPIC core, it'd be better if it just used a build binary.
Yes, that's a good point. So there is another issue. Here it is. NuPIC core can be built as a shared library. So Austin has put in some work on that. Once we get to that point, we can just archive that shared binary somewhere, and our NuPIC build can just pull it down, which would be really nice. And that would speed up the NuPIC build a lot.
Isn't it already set up so that you can just take the libraries and the header files and switch and just label that?
It is. There's still some work to done to that. There's still some hard-coded references to things core.
Okay.
But otherwise, yeah, you can build NuPIC core separately, and then just build NuPIC, tell it where to find the binary, as long as the instance core is also there.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So that little piece of this.
Okay, so it seems pretty easy.
So there's we still haven't made much progress this past week or two on getting pip install NuPIC to work. But I think once we have that NuPIC core binary and our build is actually just pulling that binary, then we can start producing a binary for Linux, a binary for OS X, and potentially even one for Windows at some point, so that we can use that as part of the pip install process and make the pip install a lot simpler. Because right now, in order to do Python setup install, or from an end user standpoint, not a developer standpoint, you still have to have Git installed so you can clone the NuPIC core directory and do the build, and it's messy. So we might not have pip install NuPIC ready until we get some of these build issues cleaned up and have a cleaner and faster pipeline. So the initiatives I think right now are still for me and others to continue working on streamlining the build, speeding it up, simplifying it, and we've got community members working on the Windows build, and there's still some work to tie up with C++11. So I think we're making good progress, and we've got these goals we're trying to hit, and then we'll come back in another 2 weeks and do another one of these reviews, see where we're at, and make sure that we all agree on the vector that we are heading. So at this point, I think it'd be good for anybody to comment on the direction we're going, and if you think we need to divert, take a right or a left or whatever, and put effort into any other areas, now's the time to talk about it. Otherwise, you kind of know where we're headed just based on what I've been talking about. Okay, so So getting to a point, like one of my main goals is to get to a point where we can release version 1.0 of NuPIC Core and NuPIC. And I've hoped since the beginning of the year that we would be able to do this by the end of this year. But there's still a lot of work, I think, to do before we get to that point. I'm still optimistic about it, but I think that the vector we're on is still driving us in that direction. Getting our builds cleaned and getting binaries created for NuPIC Core so that can be installed in NuPIC, I think, are all going in the right direction for getting to a release point. So I think we're going the right way to get to that goal. I'm not sure if we'll get to it by the end of the year, but that's still something that's very present in my mind, just to let you know. Okay, so that's about it. Any feedback at all about anything from anyone at this point?
Yeah, I have one thing, Matt. This is Scott. I put together, I'd updated the wiki page for the, I forget what it's called, like milestones or whatever.
The roadmap, right?
The roadmap, right. So I think that serves a very different purpose than the board that you showed here. And it'd be nice to keep that updated as well. So I don't know if it's active right now or not, but
yeah. So this needs to be updated for sure. I appreciate you updating it, and I think I asked you to update it and said I will make sure that it's all up to date after you've added your items, and I never did. So this is I think this is my job to keep updated, and I will take care of it. Sorry, I didn't get to it last time we talked.
Yeah, I think that it'd be useful to review the priorities on there periodically with the different stakeholders for NuPIC to make sure we kind of have in our heads where we're going along the lines of what you were just talking about with the 1.0 NuPIC. What does that mean? And so we should define that on there. And I kind of broken it down into quarters. Maybe quarters isn't the right thing to do. I was thinking that time scale, so maybe we don't do fixed time periods, but you blocks roughly of that size.
Yeah, I think quarters is okay. Yeah, I think quarters is okay. But I'm not prepared to go over this unless you would like to go over it right now and talk.
Just wanted to remind you.
Okay, thank you for that. And yeah, I'll take this as an item. I think I have a wiki, or excuse me, an issue to update the roadmap. I probably just got lost in the confusion. So I will take care of that, and thanks for pointing that out.
Hey, Matt, and with the new format that you're following now, I think it's more conducive to look at this on a regular basis, whether it's once a month or every other week or every 2 months, whatever frequency, but at least include going over this roadmap and seeing where we are at a higher level in addition to the individual issues.
Yeah, that's really true. What I should do is, and what I used to do when I was keeping this up to date a long time ago, was review it and update it before every one of these bi-weekly meetings. So I'll probably try and just make that a part of my process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so good feedback. Anything else from anyone?
Yeah, it looked like we had a lot of PRs closed this last couple of weeks. Is that true?
Yeah, there was like 80 something.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good.
Now some of them were not closed, they were not merged. They were just closed. So I don't have a way of showing that at the moment.
I see you're inflating our numbers here, Matt.
Well, it's not all my fault. Some people just create PRs and they don't work out, or they get feedback and we just close them. But yeah, there has been a lot of merges to master at least, so that's good.
Yeah, we can probably look at the commit log to see NuPIC. But that was just something I noticed, and that seemed like at least compared to several months ago, that's like a qualitative difference.
Yeah, and we're getting good engagement from the community as well, which is good. Okay, well, we are at 3:30 right on the dot, so that's a perfect time to close off. So thanks everybody for joining in. and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Take care. Hello? I guess that's good timing because it seems like the internet just cut out. So.